you've been watching me for a bit, you might remember that intro from one of my previous videos. I thought it would be fitting to use it again considering I made that in the network test before the game came out, and now I finally reached the end of Elden Ring. Last night on Twitch, twitch.tv/Skumnut, I beat Elden Ring. If you were there last night, thank you for joining me in that historical moment. It took me around 80 hours in total to beat the game, and man, it was a fucking ride, dude. This game is hands down one of the best games I have ever played. Now with that being said, just like any other game, Elden Ring does have a few issues. If you couldn't already tell from the title, this is going to be my completely honest review of Elden Ring. There will be no cap, no bullshit. I will judge this game the same way I normally would with any other game. Now, I don't know if I really need to say this because it should be obvious, but just in case, spoiler warning. In order to really dive deep in Elden Ring, I will have to show some clips of boss fights and maybe some cutscenes, just so I can really show you what I'm talking about. So if you haven't already beat the game and you don't want to be spoiled, I will put a timestamp on the screen now. It will go towards the end of the video where I will do a spoiler-free summary of everything I talked about. It won't be as in-depth, but it should give you an understanding of what I meant. Anyways, this is a Souls-like game. Let's start with... There are tons and tons of boss fights in Elden Ring, more than any of their previous games. Like, I'm telling you, every single day you play this game, you can probably find a new boss you've never seen or heard of before. This is something that is really cool because it just keeps action coming. You know, no matter how far in the game you get, there will be another boss somewhere for you to fight. This is a huge improvement from Dark Souls because you would eventually run out of bosses to fight, and the only way to fight more would be going into New Game Plus. Now, you can technically say the same thing for Elden Ring, that you would eventually run out of bosses to kill, but that will take a very long time because, listen, I'm about 80 hours in, and I don't think I'm anywhere near killing every single boss in the game. In Dark Souls 3, I've killed every single boss in a day before. So it's really nice to see that there is a lot more content in the boss department. And now, while there are a lot of bosses in the game, which is good, I do have a couple of problems with some of them. A lot of bosses in Elden Ring feels like there's just some dash of bullshit in it. Specifically, General Radahn and Malenia. Let's talk about Malenia's fight first. Now, if you fought Malenia before, I'm like 100% sure you will agree with me. Now, for me personally, I think Malenia's fight is so close to being one of my favorite fights of all time in any FromSoft game. But there's one single factor that just ruins that entire fight for me. And that is the fact that she heals every single time she hits you. This literally ruins the fight. There's no item to stop her from healing like there was in Bloodborne for Amelia. There's just absolutely no way to counter her healing. You can put Malenia to half health and she will do like one combo on you and she will be almost back to full health. It is really fucking stupid. Oh yeah, she can also heal by hitting your spirit summon too, by the way. Now, while Malenia is clearly the hardest boss that FromSoft has ever created, I don't think it's true difficulty. An actual well-designed boss does not need healing to be hard. Not that Malenia's fight is poorly designed. The fight itself is designed perfectly well. It's fun, it's fast-paced, but the healing is just completely unnecessary. It makes the fight not fun anymore. The healing is artificially making the boss harder. You can make any boss in the game hard by letting them heal every time they touch you. This was extremely disappointing for me because I was looking forward to fighting Malenia. I was expecting like a Gale level fight from this cool ass, extremely well-designed character. There are tons and tons of people who are currently stuck on Malenia and just can't find a way to beat her. The best way to beat her that I found was by stun locking her, which is extremely fucking lame. I never want to stun lock a boss to beat it, but that's the only way to stop her from healing. I pretty much just got a +9 Blasphemous Blade and a +10 Mimic, then stun locked her to hell. That was extremely unsatisfying and not fun to do, by the way, but that was the only option other than just dodging every single attack and never getting hit by anything, Good luck doing that in second phase. Now let's move on to General Radahn. Now visually, Radahn's fight is extremely cool, you know? It's like you're going to war against this fucking monster. However, when you're actually the one playing, it's not so fun. For me personally, Radahn's fight feels a little too gimmicky. It feels like half the time I'm just summoning people. They run in, they die immediately, and then I summon them again. Now, of course, you don't need to summon people, but if you don't, it's just a lot harder. I only have one more complaint about Radahn. I don't have much to complain about him because, you know, it's nothing compared to Malenia's fight. My only other complaint about Radahn is the fact that all it takes is one meteor to one-tap you and you're dead immediately. That's something that should only happen in New Game Plus. I swear to God, those meteors are actually heat-seeking missiles too, the way they home in on you at the speed of light. Before we get off the topic of bosses, I do want to say the final boss in the game is fucking amazing. Now, difficulty wise, the final boss wasn't too hard, but it was definitely challenging, it was fun, and most importantly, it was cool as fuck. And oh my god, do not get me started on the theme for that fight. Anyways, there are a lot of good fights in Elden Ring, a lot of fun bosses, a lot of cool bosses visually, and then there's just a few fights that are cool but have a little dash of bullshit in it. I will say though that the good fights definitely outweigh the bad ones. Now, let's talk a little bit about Elden Ring is FromSoft's first open world game, and man, they killed it. When it comes to open world games, I usually get bored pretty fast. GTA story mode and Genshin Impact got me sleeping sometimes, bro. Like, I swear to God, I can't play open world games. But Elden Ring, I definitely can. In a lot of open world games, there's usually like areas that are just empty and lifeless. They just feel boring. There is no area like that I know of in Elden Ring. Another thing with most open world games is the fact that there's usually something left to be desired. You know, you want some more areas, you want some more content in general. But in Elden Ring, I never got that desire because there's already so much content in the game. I'm nearing 100 hours in Elden Ring and there's still a bunch of stuff left to explore on the map. Every single area in the lands between was extremely fun to go through. In fact, out of all the different areas, there really was only just one I didn't like. It wasn't even an entire area, it was more like just a small subsection of one. And that area was Lindell Capital Sewers. God damn, that's like the new Blight Town. I swear to God, there's like 10,000 gargoyles in there. When you walk through, they chase you. Their aggro range is like 10,000 miles and they just start beating your ass. Anyways, aside from the sewers, the map is fucking beautiful. I still, to this day, cannot believe that people said this game looked like Dark Souls 3. Yeah, sure, it might use the same engine, but it does not look at all like Dark Souls 3. Elden Ring is a beautiful game and the map itself is beautiful as fuck. Like, you cannot look at this and tell me that looks bad. That looks amazing. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for the map. Like, the map is good. There's barely anything to complain about, and I think FromSoft killed it. Now, let's move on to the overall story of Elden Ring is pretty easy to understand. I mean, they have tons of trailers already explaining it. While I don't find myself as into the story in Elden Ring as I was for Bloodborne or Dark Souls, it's still pretty good. Of course, this is a FromSoft Souls-like game, so there's not much to expect in the story department. It's usually obscure and you have to really look into things and behind the curtains to understand what's going on, but I think I have a pretty good idea of what is actually happening in the world. Anyways, aside from that, one thing that really made me disappointed was Melina. When you meet Melina, she basically asks you to take her to the foot of the Erd tree, so you're supposed to go on this journey with her, but it really doesn't feel like she's there at all. In fact, in my playthrough, I think I saw her like maybe a total of 3 times outside of a cutscene. Also, one thing I don't understand is why she doesn't come out every time you go to level up. She is supposed to be the person that levels you up, right? So why is she just not there? Later on in the game, after killing the fire giant, at least in my playthrough, she sacrifices herself to light the Erd tree on fire. This death is extremely underwhelming because, you know, we barely know her, even though we should know her because we went on an entire journey to the tree with her. This had me extremely sad and disappointed because I thought Melina was going to play a big role in the story of this game, but clearly not. You can literally delete Melina from the game and you would barely notice a difference. Vare has more screen time than her. Also, just to be clear, I've only done the Age of Stars ending, I believe that's what it's called. I have not gotten every single ending, but my Twitch chat went ahead and told me that you can save her, but she kind of just leaves you. So I don't think there's really like a Melina ending, as far as I know, which is disappointing. Anyways, yeah, I thought the whole Melina thing was pretty silly. Like, why? Why did that happen? Why is she not a major story character? Why do we not see her at all? Aside from Melina, character quests and NPC stories are extremely good. They're well done. I've seen a lot of people complain about how there's no quest log for these, but you know, it's just obvious they've never played a FromSoft game before. They don't know how it is. There's no hand-holding. That's the way it's always been, and that's how it is in Elden Ring. Out of all the different NPC quests you can do, my favorite is Ranni's. If you don't know who Ranni is, she's that blue baddie with 4 arms. Doing Ranni's quest really takes you on an adventure. I have a whole video about it. You explore this entire underground area that literally looks like space. It's fucking beautiful visually. And then you go back up, you have to beat Radahn's ass, a star falls from the sky, creating another hole in the ground, and you find this hidden city of Nokron. You also get to marry Ranni, like literally put a ring on her finger, and then you get an entire different ending. Ranni's quest has to be one of the best FromSoft has ever made, and you also get a bunch of cool backstory on the world. Now, let's talk about one of the most important things in a FromSoft Souls-like game. I want you to know right now I have absolutely zero complaints about the weapons, spells, or armor in Elden Ring. There is so much variety in each category, and it's just fucking awesome. This amount of variety is what I wanted in the other Souls-like games. With the amount of variety and different items in Elden Ring, I think I can make like hundreds and hundreds of different builds. One thing I really liked was the fact that Faith and Intelligence both seem pretty on par with each other. While Intelligence seems to have a lot more options early on than Faith, Faith has a lot of different stuff in the endgame areas. Another thing I really liked was that a bunch of spells that are visually cool are actually good. This was like a major problem in Dark Souls 3, I swear to god. Soulstream, that shit looked cool as fuck, but it was almost useless. The damage was bad, and you could almost never hit people with it. Anyways, yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say in the weapons, spells, or armor department. Everything's pretty good. It's pretty much everything I ever wanted. Overall, Elden Ring is hands down one of, if not the best game I have ever played. While I do think Elden Ring is the best game I have ever played, of course it does have its issues. There are a few bosses that have a little too much bullshit in them. A good example of what I'm talking about is Malenia and Radahn. Malenia being able to heal just by hitting you is ridiculous, and the fact that there's no counter is stupid. Radahn's fight is a little too gimmicky, as it feels like half the time I'm just summoning people for them to go die and then I summon them again. And the fact that his homing meteors one-tap you is kind of ridiculous, especially when it's just new game and not new game plus. Majority of the boss fights though are extremely well designed and fun. The amount of good bosses definitely outweigh the bad ones, especially the final boss. God damn, that's good. There are tons and tons of content to go through in the lands between. Unlike most open world games, you will never get bored of just exploring around the world. There is always something to do somewhere in the lands between. Majority of the stories and quests are extremely well designed and pretty entertaining. Although I am kinda upset that Melina's story isn't really explored, there are a bunch of other quests you can do to get a good amount of lore about the world. The weapon, spell, and armor variety in Elden Ring is unlike any other Souls game. Elden Ring is pretty much everything I ever wanted from FromSoft. I have always been a huge fan of Souls-like games from FromSoft, and to see them evolve into open world games is just absolutely insane, especially when it's done so well. The fact that this was their first time doing an open world game and they were able to pull it off this well with this amount of content, even if you don't like Souls-like games, how can you not respect that? Elden Ring is the easiest $60 anyone could ever spend in their life. Since this is my first review ever, I don't really have like a meter or a scale. I guess I'll just make one right now. Let's go with the Skumnut scale. Why not? I'm going to give Elden Ring 9.5 nuts out of 10, but for PC, 9 nuts out of 10 because goddamn those lag frames, they really don't make me want a nut. I'm not giving Elden Ring a 10 because while it is my favorite game, it does have quite a few problems. They also could have done so much more with Melina, but they didn't, which is extremely disappointing. Anyways, that's pretty much about it. Elden Ring is a masterpiece. You should play it now. If you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching. You're awesome. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.